In a small village in Kenya, there lived a man named Kofi. Kofi was a farmer and lived with his wife, Amara. They were known for their kindness and hard work. Every day, they worked together in their fields, growing maize and vegetables. One hot afternoon, while Kofi was plowing the field, Amara suddenly fell ill. She fainted and did not wake up. Kofi was very scared. He did not know what to do. He called for the village healer, Mama Zai. Mama Zai came quickly and checked on Amara. She looked very serious. Kofi, she said, Amara is very sick. She needs special herbs from the forest to wake up. Kofi was ready to do anything to save his wife. I will go and get the herbs right away, he said. Mama Zai nodded. Be careful, Kofi. The forest is dangerous. But hurry, Amara does not have much time. Kofi ran to the forest as fast as he could. He searched for the special herbs, looking high and low. It was getting dark, and he was very tired. But he did not give up. He knew he had to save Amara. Meanwhile, back in the village, Amara was still not waking up. Some villagers started to worry. They whispered to each other, what if she is gone forever? One villager, Mosi, came to Kofi's house. He saw Amara lying very still. Kofi, Mosi said, I think Amara is dead. We need to bury her. No. Kofi shouted. She is not dead. She is just very sick. I will find the herbs and she will wake up. But Mosi did not listen. He gathered some other villagers, and they decided to bury Amara. They dug a grave near a big tree. Just as they were about to put her in the ground, Kofi came running back with the herbs. Stop! Kofi yelled. I have the herbs. Amara will wake up. The villagers stopped and looked at Kofi. Mama Zai took the herbs and made a special tea for Amara. She carefully poured it into Amara's mouth. Everyone waited and watched. Slowly, Amara opened her eyes. She was alive. The villagers cheered, and Kofi hugged his wife tightly. They were so happy that Amara was safe, but as the night fell, Kofi noticed something strange. Amara seemed different. Her eyes looked dark and her voice was quiet. He began to wonder if something else had come back with her from the brink of death. Kofi tried not to worry too much. He was just happy that Amara was awake and with him again. He hoped that she would soon return to her old self. But as days turned into weeks, Amara's strange behavior continued. She no longer sang while working in the fields, and she often stared into the distance, lost in her thoughts. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Kofi decided to talk to her. Amara, he said gently, are you feeling all right? You have not been yourself since you woke up. Amara looked at Kofi with her dark eyes. I feel different, Kofi, she replied softly. It's as if a part of me is still asleep. Kofi held her hand. Maybe we should visit Mama Zai again. She might know what to do. The next day, they went to see Mama Zai. The healer listened carefully as Kofi explained everything. She nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes, when someone comes close to death, they bring back a piece of the spirit world with them. Amara, you may have a spirit attached to you. Amara shivered. What should we do, Mama Zai? Mama Zai took a deep breath. We must perform a cleansing ritual. It is the only way to help you feel whole again. That night, under the full moon, Mama Zai prepared for the ritual. She built a small fire and placed special herbs around it. The villagers gathered to watch, their faces filled with concern and curiosity. Mama Zai began to chant in a language that only she knew. She moved around Amara, sprinkling herbs and water. The fire crackled and the air seemed to hum with energy. Suddenly, Amara let out a cry. A shadowy figure appeared behind her, dark and menacing. The villagers gasped and took a step back. Mama Zai continued her chants, her voice growing stronger. The shadow began to tremble and shrink. Slowly, it faded away, disappearing into the night. Amara collapsed to the ground, exhausted but free. Kofi rushed to her side. "Amara, are you all right?" he asked, his voice shaking. Amara looked up at him and smiled. "Yes, Kofi. I feel like myself again. The spirit is gone." The villagers cheered and clapped. Mama Zai smiled and nodded. The ritual was a success. Amara is truly back with us now. Life returned to normal for Kofi and Amara. They worked together in the fields, laughed with their friends, and enjoyed the simple joys of their village life. But deep in the forest, where the herbs grew, something stirred. A pair of glowing eyes watched from the shadows. The spirit had been driven away, but it was not gone. It was waiting, biding its time, planning its return. Days turned into weeks, and Kofi and Amara were happier than ever. The village celebrated their return to normalcy, and the couple felt grateful for the support of their friends and the wisdom of Mama Zai. They thought the spirit was gone for good, but the memory of the dark eyes in the forest still haunted Kofi. One evening, Kofi and Amara were sitting by their fire, enjoying a quiet dinner. Suddenly, they heard a loud rustling noise outside their hut. Kofi stood up, his heart pounding. "I'll go check," he said, trying to sound brave. Amara nodded, her face filled with worry. Kofi stepped outside and saw nothing but the dark, empty village. He was about to go back inside when he noticed something strange. A trail of glowing footprints led from the edge of the forest to their hut. His blood ran cold. He followed the footprints cautiously, his eyes scanning the shadows. They led him to the big tree where the villagers had almost buried Amara. As he approached, he saw a figure standing by the tree. It was Mama Zai. "Mama Zai!" Kofi called out. "What are you doing here?" Mama Zai turned to him, her face solemn. "Kofi, the spirit has returned. It is not satisfied with being driven away. It wants something." Kofi's heart sank. "What does it want?" Mama Zai looked at him with sad eyes. "It wants Amara. When she was brought back, part of her remained in the spirit world. The spirit feels incomplete without it. We must find a way to protect her." Kofi clenched his fists. "I will do anything to keep Amara safe." Mama Zai nodded. "We must go to the heart of the forest where the spirit dwells. There, we can perform another ritual to bind the spirit and protect Amara." The next morning, Kofi and Amara, along with Mama Zai, ventured into the forest. The villagers wished them luck and prayed for their safety. The forest was dark and eerie, with shadows lurking behind every tree. The deeper they went, the more Kofi felt a cold presence watching them. Finally, they reached a clearing. In the center was a large, ancient tree with twisted roots and gnarled branches. Mama Zai set up a small altar and began to prepare for the ritual. She placed special herbs and stones around the base of the tree and started chanting. As the chant grew louder, the ground began to tremble. A dark mist rose from the earth, and the spirit appeared, its eyes glowing with anger. It moved towards Amara, but Kofi stepped in front of her, determined to protect his wife. Mama Zai continued to chant, her voice unwavering. The spirit shrieked and tried to push past Kofi, but he held his ground. Suddenly, the ancient tree's roots began to move, wrapping around the spirit and pulling it towards the ground. The spirit struggled, its form becoming more and more transparent. Finally, with a final cry, it was pulled into the earth, the roots closing around it. The dark mist disappeared, and the forest became silent once more. Mama Zai stopped chanting and turned to Kofi and Amara. "It is done. The spirit is bound to the tree. It will no longer trouble you." Kofi hugged Amara tightly, relief washing over him. "Thank you, Mama Zari. We could not have done this without you. As they made their way back to the village, Kofi and Amara felt a weight lifted from their shoulders. The spirit was gone, and they could finally live in peace, but deep in the heart of the forest, the ancient tree stood silently, its roots holding a dark secret. The spirit was bound, but its anger and desire for revenge were not gone. It was waiting, patiently, for the day it could break free once more. Kofi, Amara, and Mama Zai returned to the village, where they were greeted with joy and relief. The villagers celebrated their bravery and the end of the spirit's threat. Life slowly returned to its peaceful rhythm, and Kofi and Amara resumed their work in the fields with renewed hope. Months passed, and the memory of the spirit began to fade. Kofi and Amara were happier than ever, their bond stronger for having faced such trials together. They laughed, worked, and dreamed of a future filled with love and happiness. One night, as they sat by their fire, Amara suddenly grew quiet. "Kofi," she said softly, "I have something to tell you." Kofi looked at her with concern. "What is it, Amara?" She smiled and placed his hand on her belly. "We're going to have a baby." Kofi's eyes filled with tears of joy. He hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with happiness. "This is wonderful news, Amara. Our family is growing." As the months went by, the villagers shared in their joy and anticipation. Everyone helped prepare for the new arrival, weaving blankets and carving toys. The village buzzed with excitement and hope for the future. Finally, the day came. Amara went into labor, and with the help of the village woman and Mama Zai, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Jabari, which means brave in Swahili, to honor the courage they had shown in overcoming the spirit. Jabari grew quickly, loved by everyone in the village. He had his mother's kind eyes and his father's strength. The village prospered, and Kofi and Amara felt their hearts swell with pride and gratitude. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Kofi, Amara, and little Jabari walked to the edge of the forest. They stood by the ancient tree where the spirit had been bound. Kofi placed a hand on the tree's trunk and whispered, "We are not afraid of you. We will always protect our family and our village." The tree stood silently, its roots holding the spirit captive. The forest was peaceful, the threat of the spirit a distant memory. Kofi and Amara knew that they had faced darkness and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever challenges life might bring. They returned to their village, hand in hand, their hearts filled with love and hope. The spirit's shadow no longer loomed over them. Their future was bright, and together, they would ensure that it stayed that way. And so, Kofi and Amara lived happily with their son, knowing that as long as they stood together, no spirit or shadow could ever break them apart.